Okay, the recording has started, so I'll just hand over you to convener to formally begin.
Okay, right. Okay, thank you very much. Welcome to the meeting of the Planning Committee. I'll hand over to the clerk to take a roll call of committee members present and read out the GDPR announcement.
Thank you. Councillor Hampshire.
Present.
Councillor Allen.
Present.
Councillor Cassini.
Present.
Councillor Findlay.
Present.
Councillor Forrest.
Present.
Councillor Gilbert.
Present.
Councillor McGinn.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor McIntosh.
Present.
Councillor MacLeod.
Present.
Councillor McMillan.
Present.
And Councillor Yorkston.
Present.
Thank you. We have apologies from Councillor Collins. Can I check with members whether there are any declarations of interest, please? There don't appear to be any declarations of interest. This meeting is being recorded and will be made available via the Council's website to allow the public access to the democratic process in East Lothian. East Lothian is data controller under the Data Protection Act 2018. Data collected as part of the recording will be retained in accordance with the Council's policy on record retention, and the recording will be publicly available following the meeting. Happy to move on to item 1, convener.
Yeah, the first item, please.
Item 1 are the minutes for approval from the Planning Committee on the 19th of August. Can I please just point out before they go for approval that at page 3, at the summary of the objector contribution from Ms McIntosh, I want to make an amendment to the draft to add the key themes of road safety, fire risks and supervision, just to more closely reflect the contribution that was made, but otherwise over to members for approval.
Okay, member happy to approve that minute.
Approved.
Happy.
Councillor McMillan, you've indicated you're looking to come in.
I just wanted to thank our clerk, Becky Crichton, for the way in which she has handled that, and the objector from that meeting has been in correspondence with Becky, and I've been copied into that, and I hope that when the minutes are amended, that the objector, who's written a very constructive reply to the offering to amend the minutes, will appreciate that her views have been heard, and I won't say any more because that application may come back, but I think in the handling of this matter, our clerk's to be commended. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor McMillan. And I know that the objectors are trying to get their hand down, but I understand it's not happening. Okay, thanks. Okay, right, we can now move to the next item, please.
Thank you. Just before we start the first substantive item, I've been asked by Graham Marsden to read out a message. So due to the technical issues, we have been required to move this meeting to Teams in order to allow the matters to be discussed to proceed. This is compliant with standing orders, as there are no restrictions on how a meeting is held. The meeting remains quorate and all participants are able to participate and view the meeting. The meeting will be recorded and be made publicly available on the website to satisfy requirements for public scrutiny. Further, it is noted that this is a public meeting, and in order to allow members of the public access to the democratic process, we will also be allowing the public to join the Teams meeting remotely so that they can view the meeting, and that is via access from Mary Sharp, our local reporter. Those members of the public will not be able to participate in the meeting. In the circumstances, it's considered that this meets the requirements of public scrutiny and the terms of standing orders.
Thank you very much.
So to move on to item 2. Item 2 is planning application 25/00352/P, installation of parking meters, High Street, North Berwick.
Could I ask the officer to introduce the paper, please?
Thanks, convener. Good morning, everybody. So through this application, planning permission is sought for the installation of 4 parking meters at High Street, North Berwick. This application is one of 12 applications proposing a total of 27 parking meters in different locations in North Berwick. Proposed parking meters would be sited within the North Berwick Conservation Area, and the meters proposed to be installed would be MS1 parking terminals measuring 307 millimetres by 305 millimetres by 1,524 millimetres high. They would have a black frontage housed within a high security stainless steel body and protected with an anti-graffiti coating. They would be powered by batteries, which themselves would be solar powered. Batteries would charge even on cloudy days. However, if deemed necessary, the batteries in the meters can be swapped out if they are low on power and replaced with fully charged batteries. Parking meters will be able to set cash or cashless payments, which is chip and pin or contactless card payments. It is also stated in application submissions that the proposed parking meters are compliant with all relevant standards for disabled access. As the proposed parking meters would operate using solar energy, they would not require any cabling or connection to existing utilities and would operate independently. And each meter would be bolted to the public footway surface, meaning no excavation would be required. To this application, there has been 17 objections received. Theirs are contained within a shared folder to which all members of the committee have access. The Community Council also objects to the application. There's a full assessment of the proposed development in the report before you, which I have nothing further to add. It is recommended that planning permission be granted, subject to conditions at the end of the report. Happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you for that introduction. And before members come in, just to remind members that we are determining the application, design of the machines, the location. We're not here to answer questions regarding the wider traffic management within North Berwick. And because the officer can't respond to these questions, this is about the planning situation of these ticket machines going into different locations. So I'll ask Councillor Finlay to come in first.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I've got 4 questions. Probably better if I do them separately, if that's all right.
Yeah, that's fine.
The first one is just for clarification. Could the officer just confirm that policy CH2 says basically that any application must preserve or enhance the conservation area?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you. The second question, turning to the meters themselves, I understand that you can't actually use your phone like with Ringo or a similar app, so people actually have to go up to the meter. I noticed on the report on the site that there is 1.2 meters between the meter and the road edge, which is required. However, do you accept that if there are people at the meter, this space is materially reduced, and in that instance, there is no longer room for a wheelchair or a parent or a buggy to get past?
Thanks for your question. Basically, the advice from our road services on these applications was that a clearance space of 1.2 metres left available on the public footway was adequate. I'm not sure if road services have anything further to add to that to answer your question.
Officer?
Oh yeah, I'd be happy to come in there. Or Haddo from Road Services. Yeah, I mean it's no different to any other obstruction on the footway. 1.2 meters is the minimum required for a wheelchair to get past. But if you had a public notice board or a lamppost or a telecoms cabinet, I mean you'd encounter the same issues if there was a group of people or even a single person standing nearby. So it's not something that we'd be concerned about.
Okay, thank you. Next question is to do with signage. Sort of first point on this, I presume there will be signs being put up on the street to educate the drivers that there are parking restrictions in place. How many of these signs do you think will be required, and what's the spacing between them? And is planning permission required for these signs?
For the detailed question on the signs, I'd probably defer to the applicant to answer that directly. There's no signage proposed in this application. It's my understanding that any signage associated with that is governed under different roads legislation.
Right, okay. So assuming that signs will be required, did you take this into account when deciding on the cumulative effect of these applications on the conservation area? Because it's not just the meters, it's signs as well.
No, absolutely, I take your point, but the signs don't form part of the application, so they're not part of the assessment.
Okay, thank you. Last question is on the EIA. The report states on the 24th of March, the council issued a formal screening opinion to the applicant, which basically said an EIA was not required. Can you just elaborate on why it was not required?
I don't have the full EIA screening opinion in front of me right now. Generally, when we get a screening opinion in, that goes to our planning policy team, and they deal with that, and they go through the certain criteria which is required by legislation to assess the environmental or potential environmental effects. They've obviously concluded that it didn't meet the threshold of requiring full environmental impact assessment. I could maybe try and access the report during the stage of this meeting, but I don't have the full screening opinion in front of me. Apologies.
Okay, thank you. I'll come back to that in my comments, but that's all for now, Chair. Norman, you're on mute.
Apologies there. I couldn't get my microphone unmuted. Councillor Allen.
Thank you very much. I've looked at the design of these. These are so out of place with the design of North Berwick. This is permanent additional street furniture. It's completely out of place with the character of North Berwick. And the problem with parking on the high street is seasonal. And this seems like overkill. Have we looked at alternatives to these?
In terms of the kind of placement of the meters and how that was arrived at, I'm not in a position to answer that. Perhaps that's one for the applicant. Generally, we had the applications just submitted and presented to us, and it's on the basis of these applications that we've got to make the assessment and the recommendation to yourselves. I'm not sure how the exact positions were arrived at and what exercise was gone through, but you know, they were submitted in the locations to us, and based on those locations, the assessment we've made is in the reports before you.
I know it's a difficult one in that looking at things from a purely planning position means that actually there are so many other factors we can't look at. But I think that rather than just placement, it's the fact they are so out of they're so out of favour with the natural area. It just does not look good at all. I'm just really surprised that they should be there at all. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Norman, you're still on mute.
Councillor Cassini.
Thank you, Kafina. Yes, I'd like to ask the operator about the timing for all of the meters. It's 45 minutes. The first 45 minutes you don't need to pay, but is there a possibility where when you're parking, you can go to the meter and actually pay for extra time that you know you're going to need, the 45 minutes plus say an extra hour or whatever at the time of parking? And I'm asking this because I think it's vital for small businesses that this option's included. In Dalkeith, there is an option to do that. And were there not that option, I wouldn't use the hairdressers that's there, because who wants to go out at the hairdressers where you're soaking wet and go and top up meter? I think that option for paying for extra time at the time you park is really important. And it may not be used all the time, but I think the option to pay extra at the time is absolutely vital. Because if you're going to be having lunch, you're going to be more than 45 minutes. We don't want to ruin the business on the high street. Is that option available on these meters?
Councillor Cassini, that's an operational matter of the meters.
Yes.
The planning application is just about the design and the location, not about how the system operates. That's done at a different process from the planning system.
So the design of the meters, does that not include how they work? Or am I missing something?
Design of the meters is how the meter looks and its impact on the location, not the operation of the parking.
Right, okay. I think this approach makes it difficult, but
It's just the planning officer hasn't. He's not. His report doesn't assess how the system operates. His report is about its location,
right, okay.
in that place and its impact on the surrounding environment.
Okay, thank you very much. Just where one of the meters, sort of like just opposite the church on the high street, and Jeremy mentioned it himself, that would be better to move that meter just a little bit towards where the lane is, because then it would not take up as much of the pavement, because the pavement, yeah, there's just the clearance. And also it'd be right in front of the little garden. It's not attractive. Could they not just shift it slightly to either one end or the other, where the church is in particular?
Planning officer.
Yeah, thanks for that. Whether or not I guess the meter can be moved is not really a question before you today. It's just really to make a decision on the meters that are proposed within the application. Of course, it's entirely up to members whether or not they consider that the meter proposed in front of the church is acceptable with regard to its impact on the conservation area and the setting of the listed building. So really that's a matter for your own judgment.
Yeah. Okay, that's fine. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Councillor Gilbert.
Thank you. I've got a couple of questions, and the first one is, during installation, how will the applicant ensure that the 1.2 metres of clear footway is maintained?
Perhaps that's probably an operational technical matter that the applicant might address, but I don't know, Mr. Marsden, if you want to come in.
Yeah, no, thanks, Dareth. I think it's just to explain, these are questions just for the planning officer at this stage. There will be a presentation or a short option for the applicant to speak and then ask the applicant questions, but much of these questions are actually questions for the applicant rather than the planning officer. Thanks.
Right, I'll keep my second question for the applicant as well then.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Gilbert. And if there's no further questions.
Chair, Chair, I'm looking to come in, please. My hand's up on my screen.
Oh, right, sorry, Councillor McMillan.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I know I'm wee and insignificant. I just to ask our planner, Dareth, on page 29, above the statement on EIA, there's a paragraph that the Community Council claims that no objective planning assessment can conclude that the meters meet the test in CH2. And I just wondered if you would like to respond specifically to that statement about the objectivity of your assessment in terms of evidence, fact, and the opinion that's expressed there, in terms of your own feeling of whether that objective assessment was indeed possible and is contained in your reports.
Thanks, Councillor Millen. Yeah, you know, I'm absolutely satisfied that there is a full assessment of the impact on the parking meters against relevant development plan policy contained within the report before you, which includes the assessment of the impact on the character and appearance of the conservation area, the impact on the setting of the listed buildings as well as other considerations such as archaeology and heritage, flooding, road and pedestrian safety. So absolutely, the Community Council are clear in their view of how they consider the parking meters comply with relevant planning policy. However, the report before you takes an alternative view, and I think there's a full and robust assessment which clearly goes through all the relevant considerations that are pertinent to this development.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for that.
Thanks, Chair.
Right. Okay. No further questions. We now need to move to representations and the representation from the applicant. And could the applicant please make the representation?
Good afternoon, convener. Good afternoon, councillors. I was going to say good morning, but that has moved on. I'll introduce myself. My name is Steve Callan. I'm a planning consultant with a company called Stantec, and we've been engaged by the council's growth and sustainability team to manage the planning application process. With me is Peter Forsyth, who's program manager within the council's growth and sustainability team. And as part of our presentation, Peter will talk about the background to the parking meters in North Berwick and the decisions that have been made to date. And I will talk through the planning application process, the lead up to submitting the application, the key planning tests, and the process to date. So it might be a good time for Peter to come in and explain just the background.
Yes, good afternoon all, and thank you for the opportunity to present here today. The story in the background to this is well rehearsed, but just to kind of go over it again, the East Lothian Council adopted its local transport strategy and parking management strategy in October 2018. This sets out the policy context for the introduction of various parking policy measures that would be appropriate and further consideration. The council then agreed to start the actual statutory consultation process on the 28th of June 2022, and then on the 28th of April 23, East Lothian Council reviewed that consultation process and agreed to the recommended mitigations and moved to the actual statutory drafting of the order. On the 10th of December 2024, East Lothian Council approved the making of the orders, and to date 3 of the orders have been made. The 4th order will be made subject to a planning decision today if that is approved or not. We are now very much in the process of the end stage where we would require to install equipment on street. Just to pick up on a couple of points, the machines actually will take coin, chip and pin, and we also have Ringo as well as an opportunity to pay by phone on street. We're looking to, the preferred option is to park by plate, where the individual logs their car registration number. There's no need for printing of tickets. It is then they can go on and do their business. We have went through an assessment process and looked at the best locations, and again there was a few questions in that, and I can get into that detail as we go through it all. So that's just a bit of the background, and so maybe pass back to Steve, who will maybe add a bit more with regards to the specific planning requirements.
Thank you, Peter. The council's growth and sustainability department are proposing to install parking meters on various street locations within North Berwick, and this is to reduce the current inappropriate and illegal parking that has been going on. there's a number of proposed locations within North Berwick Conservation Area, and because this conservation area is also covered by what's known as an Article 4 direction, this places a restriction on numerous types of development within conservation areas. This includes the installation of parking meters, and the Planning Authority confirmed in early 2025 that planning permission is therefore required for the parking meters within the conservation area. For clarification, there are 28 parking meters proposed out with the conservation area, and these can be installed under the council's permitted development rights under the Roads Act. Through this the planning application process, various street locations have been identified for the installation of the parking meters, and separate planning applications are proposed and are submitted on a street-by-street basis. Today, we are seeking permission to install 27 parking meters at 12 street locations within North Berwick. Each application has to be determined under its own application and under their own merits. But Peter and I are in particular speaking about them cumulatively as the principles of each proposal, and the planning tests for each remain the same. As part of the planning application process and confirmation from the Planning Authority that the meters required planning permission, we entered a period of pre-application discussion with the Planning Authority, and this included the key consultees covering transport, landscape and heritage. During this period, we received feedback from the Planning Authority on what information was required to be submitted with each application, and some street-by-street feedback from key consultees on the requirements, including minimum pavement width, proximity to listed buildings, private properties, and trees and hedges. This feedback helped refine the locations of certain meters within the conservation area, and also where some meters should not be installed and removed from any proposed plans. In addition to the pre-application discussion and feedback, it was requested that the applications were EIA screened to check if they were required to support an EIA, be supported by an EIA report. It was determined by the Planning Authority in March 2025 that each meter on an individual and cumulative basis did not trigger any requirements for an EIA to support the respective applications. So beginning in April 2025, planning applications were submitted for each street, and all contains the following information: a proposed parking meter location plan, a proposed site plan showing the exact location and dimensions of the parking meters. A design statement for each street was that assessed their impact, and there was also a brochure of the proposed parking meter, which included its materials, colours and dimensions. There are at some locations within the conservation area that required additional build-outs and curbing and some hard standings. So there was additional plans required for those. This also includes the installation of bollards to protect these meters from vehicle strikes. They are confined to specific locations, which is 4th Street, Quality Street, St Andrew Street, Melbourne Road and Tantallon Terrace. Within each application, the design statement assessed the principle of the proposal and their impact on the immediate surrounding environment, including the conservation area, any listed buildings and their setting, flood risk, ecology, and any landscape features. Each of the 12 applications that are before Planning Committee today have been assessed by the Planning Authority, and they are in a position to recommend approval of each application subject to acceptable and deliverable planning conditions, such as minimum pavement widths, road safety audits where build-outs and hard standings are required, and some drainage assessments. In addition, the Planning Authority's assessment, the internal consultee feedback that was provided to each from landscape, heritage, flooding and structures and roads. None of the consultees have objected to any of the applications, with conditions proposed at certain locations to ensure the meters are installed to the correct standards and in accordance with the approved plans. Each parking meter that has been assessed by the Planning Authority has been that they are relatively small structures that are sitting against the backdrop of much larger buildings, and they are I think it works out about 0.1 of a square meter in terms of its the amount of space it would take up on a pavement. When it was assessed against each street scene, which included parked vehicles, they were deemed to not have a visually harmful, prominent, or intrusive impact on each street, and each meter included the proposed material and colours were considered to be visually compatible with existing street furniture within a conservation area, such as planters, cycle parking, litter bins, etc. As such, they were seen to be as everyday street furniture within an urban environment, and on this basis it was assessed to not having a harmful impact on the appearance of the conservation area, nor the setting of any nearby listed buildings or the amenity of the surrounding area. In addition, as already mentioned by Peter, each meter will be solar powered and does not require any electricity connection, so it doesn't require any excavation into the pavements, so as they will be bolted to the surface. The planning assessment of each application found them to be compliant with the development plan policies, and also the key provisions of the Planning, Listed Buildings and Conservation Area Scotland Act were assessed to ensure the status of the conservation area and listed buildings remain preserved. They have confirmed that the Planning Authority have confirmed that the proposed meters will not cause a harmful impact on the conservation area or listed buildings in the vicinity of each meter. On this basis, we respectfully request that the recommendation of approval by the Planning Authority is supported by members today. Appreciate this is a presentation for the very first application, so we are available to take any questions as each application is being determined today. Thank you.
Norman, you're still on mute.
Sorry, the applicant has just given a presentation longer than would normally give, but that's for all the application we're going to hear today. But he will answer any questions on each application as we go through them. Okay, Councillor Finlay.
Thank you, Chair. Just a question to the gentleman from Stantex. Sorry, I didn't write down your name, so I can't remember it. I'd like to go back to a comment you made near the beginning of your presentation, where you said all this is due to inappropriate and illegal parking. Can you provide evidence and data to back that up? Because I'm not aware of any data that backs up that statement.
Well, I'll probably defer to Peter in terms of the background of where we got to in terms of the requirement, but it's my understanding it's on the basis that there have been parking issues in North Berwick.
Yes, Councillor Finlay, we have, as part of the actual demand assessments which were presented to Council previously, there was undertaken parking surveys which highlighted levels of contravention parking and also the actual length of stay and other parking problems that were experienced in North Berwick. This has been on the council's website for many a year now, so that is available for yourself to have a look at.
Okay, thank you. I think there's some sort of dispute about that particular survey, but I'll leave that for the moment. If Mr. Forsyth, if I can go back to a question I raised with the planning officer about signage. I know that technically the signage is not part of this application, but it does have a bearing on the cumulative effect. What are the plans for signage for these machines?
Yeah, so under the actual general provisions for signs that we have to actually sign, there is already signage in North Berwick. For example, on any double yellow line, single yellow line, that you already have a time plate that is provided there, that is part of the existing street furniture. It is in all streets in East Lothian where we currently have regulations on parking restrictions and such. What we will be doing is supplementing these plates on existing poles where we can, or adding new poles into it as well. This is under permitted development rights, and it is part of what is required to actually enforce the lines and make sure that they are compliant with the regulations.
These signs don't require planning
No, they don't.
permission in themselves.
No, they don't. They are permitted development rights under the actual Road Scotland and the Road Traffic Regulation Act.
Okay, thank you. That's all for now. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Councillor Finlay. Councillor Gilbert.
I think Councillor McMillan was before me.
Oh, sorry, my apologies. Councillor McMillan, I missed you again.
It's quite all right. I'm getting used to it. I really wanted to ask about the experience that the applicants have had with those meters, and where else they know that they've been placed. I've become a bit of a geek on this, looking at the shape of parking meters, old and new, in well, Scotland, England, France, and various other countries. So it would be really nice, given the opinion that Councillor Allen expressed earlier, to know where these specific parking terminals, as I see the leaflet refers to them, have been used before. Similar settings in conservation areas. Do you have any history of that?
So, Councillor McMillan, we are looking, and that the preferred supplier is they're looking for the MS1 terminal. Currently, we use this supplier for our coastal car parks. What we have done, though, is we have replaced the internal mechanisms within the car park. So we have one supplier that covers the whole of East Lothian. These terminals are used extensively right across the whole of the region, where Edinburgh and Midlothian, they are, the standard type of terminal that is in place. It provides all of the necessary equipment, and they're modular in their design, so you can swap out and replace parts of it as necessary as you go forward. So they are very regularly used. They're used in like forestry commissions. They're used all over the country in different settings. So it's not like that they're unique to East Lothian. They're very, very common in their style.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Councillor Gilbert.
Thank you. Just go back to my original questions about how will the 1.2 metres of clear footway be maintained during any installation?
Yes, thanks, Councillor Gilbert. So the installation of the equipment is very similar to the installation of any equipment or any roadworks that's carried out on street. Under the New Road Streetworks Act, a utility or company or anybody who comes in has to maintain a right of access past it. So if there are going to be a period of time for disruptions, then they will remove the park and provide that pedestrian access with ramps and such to allow that to go ahead. It just complies with the actual requirements that road services will require for it to be installed with as little disruption as possible.
Okay, thank you for that. And my second question is, will there be a need for any temporary traffic or pedestrian management during the installation works?
Yeah, so we all need that in certain locations where we've actually constructed build outs and such. We'll need to put up signs and road markings. Again, that temporary traffic management is all in accordance with the Marine Book, the actual standards that are applied for all roadworks, that the contractor will go about their business in exactly the same way and professionally looking after the safety of the travelling public.
Thank you for the answers.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor Gilbert. Councillor Forrest.
Thank you, Convener. Just following on from Councillor Gilbert's question, how long will it take to put in the meters? Because obviously I heard earlier where they're solar powered, batteries are in them, and they just bolt on. So maybe being a bit sarcastic when I say this, but is it like a 20-minute job, or is it a 2-hour job? You know, what sort of time scale?
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Forrest. That depends very much on the exact location. We know that we've got a wee bit of a build out that needs to go into 4th Street. That will probably be a few days' work. But other sites, because of the site and locality and such, will probably be a minimum of an hour on site. They can be installed relatively quickly. It also depends on the harness and the material that they're bolting it into. Some of it may be underlying concrete or such that we're not familiar with. So, you know, there will be unintended or unexpected, but they are, as our what we class is very short stay works.
Thank you for that, Mr. Forsyth. That's helpful.
Thanks for Councillor Forrest. Councillor McGinn.
Thanks for that, Chair. Just a quick question. My understanding is that these particular items are going to be very similar to the ones that we use in relation to coastal car parking locations. And obviously we have Ringo and we have pay by card and by cash, and they would appear to be very secure. And if they're the same kind of standard or models, they will also be pretty secure in terms of anybody trying to get any cash from them. We know that these things sometimes attract the wrong elements. I'm assuming we're really happy with the security, and they'll be getting emptied regularly. Would be some of the questions that were raised.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor McGinn. So the council does undertake regular emptying of the cash boxes, and it depends. So we monitor these online. We have the facility to look at the operation of what the actual level of coin that's in the boxes. They are all stainless steel. They are reinforced. They are very robust for break-in. They are difficult. You really need to go at it very for quite a bit of a time, and that's been shown and demonstrated where we've tried to have some break-ins previously down the coast and such. So I mean it is a very strong, robust design, and it's resistant to that sort of theft attempts as well. So, you know, and we are looking at, again, for the collection of it, we have usually, depending on the box and such, but usually it's every fortnight or so that they're collected. But again, it varies depending on usage as well, because a lot of people, and as we monitor these things over time, we notice that people become far more reliant on using Ringo rather than paying by coin or using, you know, chip and pin. So the actual need for it to be emptied is not as much as it used to be, but we still have NSL who undertake that, and they'll do that regularly for us. Thank you.
Thanks for that.
Thanks, Peter. Thank you.
Councillor Forrest.
Chair, I wonder if we could I ask another question? It was a question that popped into my head when Councillor McGinn was asking his, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah.
Thank you. Can I ask, if there was any repairs needing done to them, you know, for the computer side of it, for picking stuff up, can that be done remotely, or does it have to have an operative come to do the repairs? I'm just thinking if that's going to cut down if there's something goes wrong with people having to stand at the side of the machine and work on it. So I was wondering if there was anything able to do remotely.
Yeah, thank you again, Councillor Forrest, for your question. So the machines, again, it's like any software updates, they can be done remotely because we can access it all remote. That's very useful. We also said that we're looking to that part by plate, which doesn't actually require there will be a printer in the machines for printing out a ticket if you're so wanting it, but you actually do not need to display it. So we're starting to remove some of the points of failure within the machine itself. If we do have a sticking mechanism, that we have our own people in the council who attend to this, and if necessary, then we can pull out NSL or IPS, who are our preferred providers at this stage, to actually come and repair the machine if it's necessary. But it depends on what it is. It's a bit, I suppose, like a computer. If your hard drive goes, then you really need somebody to come in to repair it on street. But a lot of it can be updated and corrected just across by remote access. Thank you.
That's great, Mr. Forsyth. Thank you for that. Thank you, convener.
Okay, thanks. Councillor Finlay, Councillor Allen.
Thank you very much. If the meters are only used for the relatively short summer season, has there been a cost benefit analysis on the running costs throughout the year, because they're a permanent feature of the streets?
So we have done, as part of the other exercise, which is not part of the planning, but it's part of the work which is done prior for council. We did a business case, and we looked at basically the cost of operating the equipment over the year against the income that is generated. So that has been done. There is online, there is the business case, and there's a financial assessment as well for North Berwick. So that was all done previously.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'd like to look at that again to actually see what the figures are, but thank you very much for your answer there.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Cassini.
Thank you. Mr. Forsyth, you mentioned getting a ticket printed for the machine, but you wouldn't need that for the 45 minutes. So does that mean that you can pay from outset for more time?
Yes, you can. Each of the machines have tariffs built into them. And so if you're wanting to stay for a longer period of time, you can approach the machine and basically put your car registration number in, and then that's it set. And you buy for how long you're wanting to stay. If you were wanting to stay longer, you would go back to the machine if it's still within the actual permitted time, and you can buy extra if that's up to the maximum length of stay you can stay on that particular street. Yeah, so it is flexible. The tariffs are built into the machines, and so we can do that easily enough.
Thank you very much for that. That's really helpful.
Thank you. Councillor Finlay.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Sorry, I put my hand down because I thought Councillor Cassini might be about to ask the question I'm going to. Mr. Forsyth, the meter outside the Blackadder Church, if we councillors decided, and I realise it would require a vote, to get that moved round away from the front of the church into the lane that runs north-south from the high street in between the church and the council research shop, would you have any objection to that?
So just to kind of maybe inform the committee that the council, we undertook a kind of assessment process for the different sites. What we're trying to do is to make sure that each of the roads that actually have an individual tariff, that have an appropriate machine that is easy walking distance. So we're trying to place them as about 50 metres apart on the longer stretches of street. So if we were going to move it within a reasonable distance, that shouldn't have any material difficulty. What we're trying to avoid is where someone is having to walk a very long distance to access a machine. Now, we will have, as part of that signage proposals, that you will have a sign giving you a direction where the machine is. But we have looked at it to try and make them as accessible as possible in the right location for the right street, not to cause any sort of difficulty with regards to access and accessibility to it for people standing and waiting in the right location, but also not to have an immediate imposition on any of the building frontages and outside shop windows and such. So we're trying to place these as just strategically as we possibly can. So moving it potentially, yes, could be accommodated.
Yeah,
thank you.
I would add in that as part of the pre-application process, the feedback we've got from the key internal consultees was where the proposed meters were going to be located and whether ones had to be moved, changed or removed. So we have gone through that exercise. So from the feedback that we have, these are the optimal positions for the proposed meters, and if there is a change in location required, that actually might require another application to do that. It depends on the level of change.
Thank you for that. I mean, I think that the process today is, if we could approve the applications that are in front of us today, it could then be looked at a later stage whether the one at Blackadder could be moved to a different location. But that would need a new application after the meeting today. I've seen Mr. Marsden's looking to come in. Mr. Marsden?
Yeah, no, thanks, Councillor Hampshire. Just to say that I have some discussion with colleagues in advance of the meeting. If there was a decision taken, or the majority view of obviously planning committee, that they wish to see the parking meter in front of the Blackadder Church, what we could do is effectively approve the application, but via condition refuse that one specific meter, and therefore it would then come in with a further application at a later date. So we could approve effectively 3 of the 4 in this instance with this particular application, but refuse via condition a specified parking meters. Have to get the location correct and give a reason why we're specifically via condition refusing that one. But the remaining 3 could be approved, and then a further application is could come forward at a future in order for a recited meter. Thank you.
Okay. That's all the questions on the applicant. We now need to move to the other representations, which is objection to the application. And first I have Trustee Towler. On my sheet, unless somebody else was looking to go first.
Sorry, that's absolutely fine.
Right.
My understanding, though, convener, is that the Community Council should really go first because of the fact that they are a statutory organisation.
On the normal process we've had at committee has been the individual objectors, 3 objectors, then the Community Council. But if the objectors are happy for the Community Council to go first, I'd be happy with that.
Sure. There we go. Thank you very much. Much appreciated. That I'm starting to petition for 12 applications, start with a general statement across all 12, and then only come back with much shorter statements on only some of the individual applications. So just avoid repetition. So
yeah, that's fine.
Thank you. So I take issue with several of Mr. Irving's statements. Obviously being that the exact location of the meter doesn't really come into it, but this has been thankfully clarified. But it is a fact that in spite of all the objections raised, not any location has been moved so far. And from our judgment, the planning assessments have been very superficial, full of copy and paste jobs, dismissing objections outright with lots of platitudes. And this, unfortunately, is not a surprise. It's fully in line with the history of the parking charges overall, where 722 objections were acknowledged by ELC as being qualified, and the vast majority of them were simply ignored. And nevertheless, the planning officers declare in the press again and again that they're happy to listen and to react to public comments. And even the chief executive still claimed in a letter to Kenny Miller last week, whilst I appreciate that there are strong views on the matter, I cannot agree that community concerns have been ignored. We greatly value all the feedback received, much of which was taken on board when the proposals were designed. It's just a mockery of the truth. The only excuse that he has said he wasn't there at the time to observe it. But but whatever we say about the process in the past, we have been reminded quite rightly, this is about the parking meters and the locations. So even if people have been for the parking charges in general, they should still be free to object to these some of these meter locations if they're really are visually by far too intrusive. I said sloppiness and misleading statements at worst already in the applications and assessments. But even the planning assessment for the 4th Street still talks about 12 applications, although by that time it was clear that there would be a 13th for the for Beach Road. The overall site location plan has never been updated, still shows meters in Victoria Road, St. Baldur's Crescent, and so on. Others in long locations at St. Andrew Street. The assessments all talk about the relatively small size of the meters. Yes, they're small in relation to the buildings, but these 30 by 30 high columns are not small at all in relationship to other street furniture. They're very sizable in comparison to those. Then again and again, they're talking about the visual relationship of these meters with all sorts of street furniture. And again, the visual relationship, as best as irrelevant, at worst, it's even detrimental. And I'll come back to some of the specific examples later. Also from the same letter from the chief executive, each report also considers cumulative impact. But all that every single planning assessment really says is, given the distance between the outer parking meters proposed elsewhere in North Berwick and the intervening land and buildings between them, the proposed parking meters would not lead to any harmful cumulative impact. And this is nonsense again. In many cases, you can stand there, you see 1 meter from the right, you can see 1 meter on the left, and when you walk around the corner, you're standing in front of the next town. So to say there's no cumulative impact is just nonsense. And finally, from the same letter, our planning technicians have confirmed that all site notices were displayed in accordance with legislative requirements. That may be formally true, but only 1 notice per application and 1 notice per road. You normally expect a notice in the immediate vicinity of each site, in this case, in each of the meters, and not 50 or 100 meters apart away. This might be legally correct, but certainly it is bad practice. The key thing, again, mentioned before is the local development plan. All development proposals within or affecting conservation area must be located and designed to preserve or enhance the character and appearance of the area. How anybody in their right mind can claim that any of these gray and black columns preserve or not to talk about enhance, but even preserve the character of the conservation area is I find it unbelievable. And certainly we as Community Council stand by our objections, and I will, as I said, say about the worst ones a little bit more later. Including coming back to the High Street. But
okay, right, thank you. Right, Kirsty Towler.
Thank you, convener. I'm speaking on behalf of NB Heritage, a group that's concerned with changes to the built and natural environment of the town. We comment on changes for the good and for the detriment. North Berwick is a lovely and very special place to live, to visit and to work. It's been found to be the best place to live in Britain. It repeatedly and recently won even more In Bloom awards. We all want it to remain a very special place. It has very special characteristics. Its geology, its geography, its vibrant high street characterised by independent stores and local businesses, its engaged population, its unique history, the harbour. I could go on. I won't. The local population is interesting and interested. It's an older population, older than the East Lothian profile, which in turn has an older population profile in Scotland. Whilst the population may be older, this lovely wee place is not in danger of dying, in spite of unsubstantiated assertions to the contrary. The town is vibrant. It certainly does not need an imposed, clumsy and clunky parking scheme to continue to be a lively place in all respects. Many people and NB Heritage are concerned that the parking scheme proposed has been developed without listening or responding to local concerns. Engagement with the public was poor. An initial scheme was accepted by officers as inappropriate. It was shocking then that a second different scheme accepted by councillors was quite so poorly designed and thought through. There was no proper, serious public engagement. The scheme and the process appeared designed to be spiteful and to impose upon the town a scheme unsuited for this special wee place, one suited to provide an income stream rather than to address some seasonal limited inconvenience. There may be parking stress in the summer months, but it's not an all-year-round phenomenon. An all-year-round solution provided by an intrusive raft of costly equipment hasn't been justified. NB Heritage consistently objected to the failure to consider the impact upon heritage and natural assets. That view, shared by many residents, has been ignored. All objections were ignored to the extent that due process has been engineered to avoid a public hearing. Councillors agreed a process that has been deliberately neutered. What are officers and possibly councillors fearful of? That the concerns of residents and local businesses would be found to be shared by a reporter at a hearing? Is it that? Perhaps officers and councillors don't wish to look foolish. I'm afraid that horse has bolted. The need for possibly millions of pounds to replace signage where it conflicted with the single gender spaces demonstrates what can happen when common sense exits the chamber, and the recent decision to provide new signage and corporate identification in Gaelic has given the public more ammunition for criticism. In the imposition of the parking scheme, the council has been poorly served by Stantec as documentation has been inconsistent and in too many instances plain wrong. Worse, it's been hugely costly, hundreds of thousands of pounds, and I'm told that there is no reliable information on the cost of the equipment required or the income that may be generated. All of the applications to be considered today lack information. None include any details of the number of signs, pole-mounted or otherwise, that will be necessary. These pole-mounted signs will not be bolted onto the pavement, but will be considerably more work to install. Without information on the poles and signs, the effect of the equipment and signage cannot be considered properly, either by individual application or cumulatively. The applications before you are being considered because previous officers and councillors considered the effect of certain changes to be important within the conservation area, and so PD rights were withdrawn. These applications were advertised in the press on this basis. We're told that site notices were put up, but not a single person in town has seen any of these, and there's no evidence to prove that that process was done. The key requirements in law and material to the consideration of all 12 applications are that the terms of sections 59 and 64 of the 1997 Act are met. One section requires that in considering whether to grant planning permission for development which affects a listed building or its setting, the local planning authority must have special regard special features or its setting. The other relevant section demands that you must have regard to the desirability of preserving or enhancing the character appearance of the conservation area in exercising your responsibilities in the determination of any application within the conservation area. It should be evident that you cannot meet these requirements if all the information is not before you. The proposals, taken individually and collectively, offend adopted policies as set out elsewhere policies contained within the up-to-date part of the development plan, that's NPF 4, and the East Lothian Development Plan of 2018, as well as in your own SPG. To the conservation area, as well as the setting of some of the listed buildings. Special regard must be had to these special places, and it hasn't been adequately. The provision of parking cabinets, as well as poles and signage, though the application is silent on the poles and signage, would neither preserve nor enhance the conservation area or the settings of nearby listed buildings. Your own policies state, and I quote here, the setting of a listed building can be affected by new development proposed within its curtilage, adjacent to it, or visible from it. Development proposals should not interrupt key views of, from, or to a listed building. Excuse me. And that's been ignored. There are key views of important listed buildings which will be harmed. The provision of 27, 38, or 42 cabinets, or whatever the number of applications and the number of cabinets is inconsistent, and associated poles and signs would most definitely interrupt views of and from listed buildings in the town and would give rise to visual harm, additional clutter, all to the detriment of buildings and the conservation area. The proposed equipment would fail to enhance and preserve the character appearance of the conservation area as described in your own SPG. Not one of the reports being considered today by the Planning Committee examines the policies ELC has adopted in detail or the more up-to-date NPF 4 policies. The failure to look at these cabinets and the changes cumulatively, in my opinion, renders the screening that this is not EIA development questionable and potentially challengeable. I base this on the opinion of preliminary legal advice and on Circular 1, 2017, which I have here, or part of it, which states that there must be regard to cumulative effect. It's set out in Annex A. This is Annex A, which provides the selection criteria for screening Schedule 2 development. You must have regard to the size and design of the development. It says that in paragraph A, and in particular to the accumulation with other existing development and or approved development in paragraph B. Your CEO has misrepresented the position in his letter to the chair of North Berwick Community Council in talking about that cumulative effect has been taken into account. No, it hasn't. Not only is the Stantec documentation missing essential information and wholly silent on signage, it fails to include information about cabinets and signs in all parts of the conservation area, notably missing in that part of the conservation area where permitted development rights have not been withdrawn. There is also a further application very recently submitted, and it partially duplicates one of the cases which is before you, a resubmission because the consultants got the address wrong. You're not considering that today, and very peculiarly, yesterday, the documentation online appeared to have been changed, but objectors weren't notified about the changes to the scheme. That's really pretty bad form and not good practice. All of the reports say this application is one of 12, proposing a total of 27 parking meters in different locations in North Berwick. That makes it sound as if only 27 cabinets are proposed. This may be correct today, but those words attempt to disguise an untruth for tomorrow and the weeks ahead. More cabinets are proposed in parts of the conservation area where PD rights have not been withdrawn. There are to be cabinets in St Baldridge, on Marmion Road. As indicated earlier, there's another scheme which is meant to be looked at and which isn't before you. Corners have been cut. processes haven't been followed, enormous costs have been incurred, yet here we are. Information is missing. The design statement submitted by Stantec doesn't include anything about design and talks about inappropriate and unlawful parking. That's not a design statement. Previous decisions are suspect. Please do not rubber stamp these applications. Please pause. Please defer considerations so that you may consider the full picture, so that all matters are judged properly and fully with the information you need. Meters will not stop inappropriate and unlawful parking. If it can, where is the final information that you can consider? All of these applications inherently conflict with NPF 4, policies 7 and 14, and your own policies CH1 and CH2. That's my statement as regard all 12.
Okay, thank you.
Additional comments. I have additional comments about the first application.
Yeah. Okay, I'll take the final speaker, then we'll open it up to questions from the councillors. So could Jeff Knight now come in, please?
Thanks very much. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak today. I am speaking on behalf of myself and was asked by others to speak on their behalf as well. These include people from the 57% who objected to the parking management scheme that was in the responses to East Lothian Council survey. So that's the council's findings. And there were 7,000 people that have signed the petition against the parking management scheme. Some of those have asked me to speak as well. So taking it forward from there, the application states that the proposal is for the development of parking meters. The design statement states that the aim is to reduce current parking issues identified within the town, and clearly states that this is related to poor levels of enforcement. It is noted that the proposed parking meters will increase the level of regulation within the town, but will not increase the level of enforcement. There's no proposals to do that. An increase a freedom of information request to East Lothian Council indicated that an increase of enforcement officers would be self-financing. They would generate a profit of 3 times the cost of employing those officers. But you have taken forward this scheme at phenomenal cost with parking meters. I don't understand why other issues weren't considered. The planning application is contrary to the council planning policy 2018-2024 parking strategy, which states that a controlled parking zone, which has been introduced in North Berwick, should only be introduced where the majority of its residents support it. The survey found that 10% Lothian residents objected to the scheme. In fact, all categories, all groupings in East Lothian objected to it. It was only outside visitors that were in favour of it, and that was a very small number of respondents. The parking surveys that the council did showed that the parking demand is less than capacity in the majority of locations, and yet this scheme is being taken forward. When East Lothian Council designated the North Berwick Conservation Zone, it acknowledged that it had a duty under the Planning, Listed Buildings and Conservation Areas Scotland Act 1997 to ensure that the character and appearance of the area was preserved or enhanced, and this is acknowledged within the Local Development Plan CH2. The Council's Senior Landscape Officer advises within his report in the planning applications that due to the small scale of the proposed meters, they would not harm the character or appearance of the North Berwick Conservation Zone. The Council Archaeological Heritage Officer advises that there would be no harmful impact on the historic environment. Those officers were asked to consider within each application no more than 4 parking meters at any one time, not the cumulative impact of them. In practice, I am advised by a landscape architect that the total cumulative impact on North Berwick Conservation Zone would be very severe, as the total number of parking meters proposed at present is 27. But the applicant has already submitted an application to increase this number, and that is going through due processes at the moment. Each of these parking meters may be associated with signage, up to possibly 5 signs per meter. And in total, that may lead to an additional 100 signs, 100 poles throughout North Berwick, 120 new signs installed within the conservation area. At the boundary between each of the 3 parking zones, there may be additional signage. Yellow lines will also be required. Recent work undertaken in North Berwick by East Lothian Council to paint new yellow signs for the parking management enforcement has been undertaken. Best practice within a conservation zone has not been followed. Pencil-thin yellow lines within the conservation area were not used, as is in the case of other local authorities such as Fife, Edinburgh and Glasgow. We now have gleaming new yellow lines. I don't think it's appropriate to set aside permitted development rights on poles and signages when the meters directly lead to this impact. The cumulative impact needs to be considered in the whole. I ask you, do not just look at the meters and allow the signage and poles to go on afterwards. On another issue, the road services advise that they allow at least 1.2 meters of unobstructed clear footway when parking meters reduce the width of the footway. This is of concern as the footpaths are narrow at a number of locations where parking meters are proposed. And when peak two-way pedestrian flows exceed of the order of 400 pedestrians an hour, a bottleneck may arise, at which point the pedestrians will step into the road with significant safety risks to vehicular and pedestrian traffic, and it also deters people walking along there and active travel. In the peak of the summer season, the pedestrian flows may far exceed 400 pedestrians an hour and lead to these types of problems, particularly during the peak summer season. The application report concludes that the parking meters would preserve the appearance and the character of North Berwick Conservation Zone and will not draw focus from or harm the setting of the area. Planning applications also submitted to the council for satellite dishes and UPVC windows within the conservation area are refused. Those developments are smaller than the parking meters that are proposed. The visual impact of litter bins and planters are desirable and they're approved. Parking meters are not desirable like the satellite dishes and UPVC windows and should be refused. Parking meters in the report say they are small or insignificant. They're not. They are small steel painted structures, 1.5 meters high, which is considerably higher than most street furniture, stand out like a sore thumb within the context of large listed buildings in a conservation area like North Berwick. Within the historic context of North Berwick and the many listed buildings, it's inconceivable that the proposed 27 plus, because you're still applying for them, parking meters meet the test in policy CH2, and the requested planning permission, in my opinion, should be refused. The impact on the historic Victorian and Edwardian architecture, it's the jewel in the crown of East Lothian, and it's North Berwick's local community are proud of, is undeniable, and therefore the planning permission within the 12 applicants should be refused, in my opinion. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you very much for your comments. I now open up for any questions of the objectors on their comments. Anybody got any objections? Any questions? Sorry. No, I've one. Do you accept that there are many conservation areas across the UK that have parking restrictions, that will have parking meters and signage? This will not be unique to North Berwick. This is something that happens even in our neighbouring city of Edinburgh, where there are many outstanding conservation areas have parking meters and signage. Is that something?
I'd like to respond to that, because the parking meters may have been introduced in previous times. Planning policy and best practice may well have moved on since then. There are alternatives. There's many conservation areas that have such as parking cards, Ringo, electronic systems without 27 parking meters with the visual impact associated with them. So there are historic places where such meters exist, but it's not best practice nowadays.
And up to the benefit of having machines, not everybody has got access to these other means of paying. Having a machine, then people have the ability to pay for their parking.
Tickets can be sold in local shops. That is perfectly possible. And everybody can do that. Nobody needs any phones or anything like that. And that's the case in many places where you just go into the shop and get your ticket if you don't have Ringo.
Okay. Ms. Towler?
Yes, there are places that have conservation areas and have parking meters, but there are also wee places like North Berwick that don't have, that rely upon other means in order to deal with what is a seasonal parking problem. The solution should be related to the problem, and there is no guarantee that what you're trying to do, and which is going to cost an absolute fortune, will actually deal with inappropriate or unlawful car parking. You'll still get it. It won't change it. It won't change the scale. But it will have an effect upon the conservation area. The scheme should be fit for purpose, and it isn't.
Thank you. Councillor MacLeod? Councillor MacLeod?
Thanks, Chair. It was it's a question for the objector, but really a question for the officer. He mentioned, I mean, this is application 2 here, but it was mentioned 450 people on the street at a meter at one time. Can you confirm, the officer, Mr. Fassater, whoever's there with him, sorry, I forget your name, how many parking spaces is on the high street, roughly?
Mr. Forsyth?
Yes, Councillor MacLeod. So looking at the high street only, as there is the East End, there is no parking spaces now. That's been removed. I think there is actually about 36 on the. It's about 48 spaces, because of the high street actually runs what we kind of past Church Road down towards the old post office buildings, about 48 spaces in the high street.
That's fine. It's just that I got confused there with an objector. I got confused there, sorry, with an objector turning around and saying there was 450 people got to be around a machine at one stage, and it threw me. So apologies if I picked it up wrong, but I thought that's what it says. But I just wanted to get confirmed how many would be on this application at one time. Thanks. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor MacLeod, just to be clear, I think the objector said there'd be 400 people per hour along a footpath in the peak time. That's what the objector had said, just walking along the footpath.
No, as I say, I picked up wrong. If I picked up wrong, right. I picked up wrong. I apologise if I picked up wrong, but it's just that I thought he was talking about actual people parking, but footfall on the street. As I say, it can be a busy street.
Okay, thank you. Councillor McMillan? Oh, sorry, Councillor Cassini first.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm just when you were saying about the parking, gosh, I've been waiting, listening to other people and just thinking for a wee while, so bear with me while I look at my notes. Yes, sorry to keep you waiting. Yeah, around the listed buildings, there is a CH1 and CH2 policies, and you remember that tourists are wanting to take pictures of those, and also in the little car park just down at the bottom opposite that really beautiful garden next to the Euro car park, they're going to lose a space there. Now that is a space that is off-road, not blocking the high street, and that would be space is for a parking meter. And I must admit, I thought at the time, oh my goodness, that seems to be contraindicative, if nothing else. Could that parking meter get moved to somewhere not actually in the parking zone, or even put, you know, in another place where it's not going to move a parking place.
Can you ask Mr. Forsyth?
Yeah.
Yeah, Councillor Cassini, we looked at in what the kind of Law Road car park, we looked at the various different sites and places and like proximity, because there's a high wall to the south side, so therefore if it was close to that, then you're going to have difficulties and challenges. You've also got the canopy of the tree, again for the charging of it. So it was, as advice given by the supplier, that was probably the best location in that car park for it to be placed, even though it is a loss of one space.
Okay. Councillor McMillan? Oh, sorry, Councillor Cassini, you want to come back in? Yeah.
No, I was just saying thank you.
Okay.
Chair, may I come in?
Yeah.
It's really just following on from some of the objectors' comments, and it relates back to my earlier question about it being an objective assessment. And I've not got access to Circular 1 of 2017 and Annex A, but I wondered if I might ask our planning colleagues whether that was taken into account during the officer's assessment. It's just really to confirm that we follow that up and that the objectors' comments there are noted.
Planning officer, respond.
I believe the point there that they were making was the cumulative assessment, and that has been taken into account in each application.
Happy with that, Councillor McMillan?
Yes, and it would be fair then to say that, you know, the cumulative effect is one based on evidence with, you know, in terms of this being a quasi-judicial process, that any statement that you make in the report is based on evidence, being at the site, looking and thinking around the cumulative effect and the effect on our policies, taking all of those policies into account.
Yes, it's a matter of planning judgment. So, you know, through a site visit, looking at the meters proposed in each application, both individually and cumulatively, where are they sited, their intervisibility, their size, their impact on kind of setting of buildings, you know, are all considerations. So, you know, that has been looked at in each and all application, with the conclusion that the cumulative impact is not going to be harmful.
Thanks, Chair. Thank you, Dareth.
Yeah. The objectors, you're not allowed to come back in at this stage. We're now move into the debate. You will obviously have another opportunity to say something when we come to another application.
Councillor Hampshire, can I just clarify something, because I'm the one that raised the question of Circular 1 2017. That's to do with environmental impact assessment. It's not to do with cumulative assessment of an application with others. It's to do with screening, and it's to do with whether screening is required and an EIA is required. Different processes, different part of the thing. Now, that's why I raised it, because it's to do with the screening process.
I'm going to ask our head planner to respond to that. Mr. Marsden.
Thank you, Councillor Hampshire. Just to confirm, a screening opinion was undertaken for this application, and it was dated on the 24th of March 2025. And just for the case of the objectors' concerns here, I'll read aspects of it out. And that is, the proposal is to seek full planning permission for the installation of parking meters. So not just one, it doesn't refer to an individual application, but it's the quantum of meters on various streets within the North Berwick Conservation Area. It then goes on to describe the parking meters in terms of their size. It then concludes, having considered the proposal in terms of its characteristics, location, and the characteristics of the potential impacts, it is therefore considered unlikely it will have a significant environmental effect, EIA regulations, to the extent that an expert and detailed study through an EIA is needed to properly assess any effect. Therefore, the proposal does not constitute an EIA development in terms of EIA regulations. So that's obviously an environmental impact assessment. That obviously doesn't mean that cumulative impact is not assessed as part of conservation area impacts with an individual application. But that is a screening opinion in relation to the EIA proposal. Thank you.
That clarification, Mr. Marsden. Okay, if there's no further questions for the objector, we now need to move into the debate on this application. Who would like to start off that debate?
I presume as I brought it, I go first and I'm local.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Okay, Councillor Finlay.
Okay. Yes, thank you, Chair. Let me just get it. While I accept the issue of whether residents and businesses of North Berwick actually want parking restrictions, and we know they don't, I accept that it's not a material planning matter. But what people think does go to the heart of the major issue here. Policy CH2 says that any planning application should preserve or enhance the appearance of the conservation area. I think we can all agree that these parking meters do not actually enhance the area. So the question remains whether they preserve the conservation area. That does come down to a subjective opinion that can differ between people. Council officers are entitled to their opinion and have stated they believe it does preserve the area. I, on the other hand, believe they are wrong and that the meters actually harm the conservation area. But I'm only one person, and we should look to the opinions of the people who actually live in these streets and the people who are going to be directly affected by these brand new, shiny, metallic machines. I've yet to come across any resident of North Berwick who believes that these applications will preserve the conservation area. In fact, they all believe the area will actually be harmed. If you look at the streetscape through the eyes of a tourist, would they say the conservation area is made up of old stone buildings, is enhanced and preserved? I think not. So why should we ignore that the people of North Berwick and the customers of the high street and the businesses and take the word of a council that will not be impacted by these proposals? So for this reason, these applications fail policy CH2 and should be rejected. I'm also concerned that not enough regard is being given to the space required by each meter in relation to how close they are to the road edge. As I indicated in my question, I do not believe there is enough space for wheelchair users and parents with children when people are actually using these meters. Why should vulnerable people be forced to wait, maybe in inclement weather, while residents and visitors are forced to stand there and pay for parking, especially during peak summer season? I've also raised the issue of signage, and I'm not satisfied that the cumulative effect of signage and meters has been taken into account in determining the impact on the town. We simply do not seem to know what signage there will be, and that hasn't been explained in this meeting. I also find it bizarre that an environmental impact assessment was not carried out in this instance. It would seem that one arm of the council has decided an EIA is not necessary in order to support another arm of the council who need to rush through these applications to support an incredibly unpopular policy being forced through by the administration. We should be refusing these applications, but in the first instance, I would like to propose that we continue all these applications until an EIA is undertaken, as this would properly examine the cumulative impact on the conservation area, including signage not part of this application. However, I realise that I would need a seconder for this, and that will come later in the process, but I will obviously return to that. In the event of a continuation not being granted, I would urge my colleagues to look past whether they supported the parking charges or not. I'm sure some here will argue that these applications are necessary to support a council policy, but that is not a material planning issue. And we are here today only to look at this as a planning issue. not anything else. Look at how the policy CH2 has been met, which in my opinion has not, and recognise that the people of North Berwick would argue that it does not, as does the community, the council. Take this opportunity to listen to the people we represent and vote down this and other applications to show that we actually care about about local democracy and the people who vote for us. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Councillor Finlay. I think we've got Councillor Allen looking to come in.
Yes, thank you very much. Listening to Councillor Finlay, there's an awful lot that I agree with, and when it comes to a proposal, I would be more than happy to be a seconder to that. I think that what we have here is we're looking at something which is permanent for what is actually a seasonal issue. I think there are better alternatives out there. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. I know the objectors are looking to come back in. You will get an opportunity when we go through the other applications. You can't come back in. We're in the debate now for the councillors to debate whether they support or reject the application. Any other councillor like to make comment on this application? Councillor Yorkston.
Thank you very much. Just very briefly, I appreciate that there's lots of comments from some of the local residents and that. Looking at the size of the meters that are being proposed, they're not, in my opinion, overly large, particularly when viewed in context of there's going to be cars parked next to them, and therefore I don't think they're going to be too intrusive that way. I'm minded to look at condition number 2, where the parking meters approved shall be installed such that they allow at least 1.2 metres unobstructed clear footway width. I did look to see in terms of sort of buggies and even sort of double buggies, the size seems to be limited to about 75 centimetres, and I think this is because the standard size of doors is 75 centimetres, and therefore to allow double buggies and mobility scooters, etc., to actually enter buildings, they tend to be constructed such a width to allow that to happen, and therefore that would still leave about 1.5 feet of sort of unobstructed pathway. And I would like to think that the people in North Berwick, if anybody was coming back with a mobility scooter or a buggy, and they were standing at a parking meter trying to fill it up, that they would move aside and allow the other people to pass. I'm minded to approve this application.
Okay, I've got Ms. Crichton looking to come back in. Still on mute.
Sorry, convener. It was just to pass on a message from the objectors who are saying that they made their general statement, but I haven't been given the chance to make their statements on the specific application. Just to pass that on to you.
I thought your statements you were making was generally all the applications and included the one we were discussing just now, item 2. No. Okay. So if there has been some confusion, then that's acceptable because of the process we've had to go through this morning. Right, we're obviously now at 1:30. I was trying to get to the end of this. I don't know whether members would just like to have a break now and then come back at 2 o'clock and we'll continue this application. What's the members' feelings, or do you want to keep going until we get this one finished?
I think we should finish this one.
Yeah,
right,
finish this
okay,
one. Yeah.
Right.
I would agree to finish that, convener.
Yeah, right. I'm going to allow the objectors to come back in and give their comments on item 2. They feel that they've not given the detail on that. If you'd like to, and I'd ask you to be, because I gave you quite a long time to present there, you'd be really quick on giving your comments on application 2. Okay, right.
I said that straight away. I'm not coming up back to every single application, and to those that I come, it's relatively short. So here, I wanted to talk about the Blackadder Church, but we have discussed that already at quite some length. So the one I really want to still come back to, which we haven't mentioned yet at all, is the meter in front of the Abbey Church, and that is standing out. But the planning application, planning assessment says it has a visual relationship with nearby planters and cycle racks, but they and even the litter bins are certainly not as intrusive and incongruous in front of this church as the big grey and black meter. So this phrase about having a visual relationship is used everywhere, but in this case it's blatantly false. And on top of that comes that they also assert, as they nearly everywhere do, that the meters must be seen in the context of parked cars, while there are no parked cars nearby. So the 2 meters in front of the Abbey Church and the Blackadder Church really need special consideration. Both are inclusive.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, we'll come back to the councillors then. And Alice, that's all your comments on that application? Yeah. Oh, right. Okay.
No, I would like to make a couple of comments. Yeah. I'm concerned about some of the question of the meters being placed right next to traditional walls, traditional buildings, and that will prevent maintenance. Now that's the case both for the St Andrew Black and for all of the other ones. Nobody's mentioned the proposed cabinet outside the listed building to the west on the south side of the high street. Now, in order for that to retain 1.2 of a pavement, and that would have to include the curb, that will be hard against a listed building. It can't be said that it doesn't affect its setting or it, because a meter will be right outside it. It's a particularly difficult place to put a meter, and it shouldn't be being placed there, harming a listed building. There'll be actual harm to the building because it won't be able to be maintained. There'll be street clutter and cumulative visual harm. I'm also slightly concerned for a different reason for the narrowing of the right-of-way which runs north from the high street, the right-of-way to the beach, which is the most eastern of the cabinets proposed, which has been tucked around a corner but just prevents continued full width access of a right-of-way. And those are my comments.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll move to now.
One final point.
Oh, sorry. Right.
It's quite a short point. It relates to the width of the space on the pavement of 1.2 meters. That is more than adequate for the majority of pushchairs, wheelchairs, assisted mobility, and people when the flows are low. When you have somewhere which is a high flow seasonal peak, such as North Berwick in sort of July, August weekends, then the flows are much higher. Reducing the width of the pavement to 1.2 meters will have flows such that people will wait. They will give way to people with special needs, but they will also stand in the road space, and that's where the safety risk occurs. For the high flow situations such as High Street, we shouldn't reduce the width to 1.2 meters. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Councillor McIntosh.
Thank you. It's kind of a comment on Councillor Finlay's proposal about continuing for the EIA, and it's half of a question really to Mr. Marsden. It's my understanding of environmental impact assessments is that they are appropriate when something might have an impact across a range of different environmental factors. Like that's why you have to have chapters on how they'll affect the water environment, soil contamination, things like the atmosphere and CO2, and that, you know, if this is a consideration about how it will affect the the appearance of the conservation area, that is a legitimate concern, but not one that would be appropriate to be addressed through an EIA, because an EIA is much more wide-ranging than that. I just want to check with Mr. Marsden that, have I understood that correctly? Is that roughly what the screening report that you read snippets from is saying?
Largely, so specifically on the point of the conservation area, I did as well comment on the requirement for screening section. The proposal is part of an overall type listed in Schedule 2 of the EIA regulations, namely 10B urban development projects. And then I want to say that although the site boundary is that of the North Berwick conservation area, the actual area covered by the individual meters is below the 0.5 hectare threshold for this type of development, so it wouldn't trigger that. The reason we then had to do on screening though was as part of the site falls in a sensitive area, namely the Firth of Forth SSI and the Firth of Forth SPA, which is a European site, it then required to be screened. So we went through the screening process there anyway. In terms of your white really to EIA, it's largely on large developments that do have those kind of multiple type impacts on roads, emissions, environmental sites, biodiversity, etc. But we went through the process in this one because of that looking at the conservation area, but then also then factoring in the SSI and the European site special protection area. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so I guess I'll just make my comments then just now. I agree mostly with what Councillor Yorkston was saying there. Just, I do think that there will be space. I mean, I'm somebody that fairly recently was pushing a double buggy around North Berwick, and at points a single buggy with a child on a balance bike next to me as well. And there are lots of points where in the summer it is actually quite stressful to have that width with your family. But that's mainly down to the level of cars rather than parking meters. So I do think that these are a pretty sensible compromise. The fact that they're quite slimline, I think, will minimise the impact on the width of the pavement available. So I will be supporting the application, and I won't be supporting this proposal to continue, because I don't think an EIA is appropriate in this circumstance.
Thank you for that. Councillor McMillan.
Thank you, Chair. And my comments are based on really my experience in North Berwick since being elected in 2012. I had the real privilege of knowing Sheila Sinclair, who was the then chair of the Community Council, and she and I walked round and she suggested various enhancements for tourism signs and for access. And just after COVID, I walked round with representatives of a disabled group, and officers responded. And I'm grateful to the objectors, I think, because at some points they have acknowledged the great place it is to live in, work in, play in, and visit. And it's the same council that we represent that have worked with partners around that in the town, most recently the award for the harbour. I've also not quite as young as Councillor McIntosh, but I've also pushed my twin granddaughters round the town, and my other grandchildren in single buggies. And it is difficult, and there's the work that we tried to do in the High Street, but this today is about parking. And I did make a point of visiting all the sites, and I did that, interestingly, with my 94-year uncle and my 89-year-old aunt just on Sunday last. And there were people parking in disabled bays that shouldn't be. We couldn't get in with their badge. Yesterday, we noticed drivers up on pavements. We noticed drivers sitting in the middle of 3 spaces. And I think there is a need for the parking scheme. And so we have to make a pragmatic, based on evidence, judgment. And one of the things that I noticed yesterday when we first met in the Lodge car park were people arriving and looking for where to pay. And I've noticed that happening before. And that made me think very, very much about the cumulative effect of where the meters would be placed and seeing them. And I don't think they would be particularly obtrusive. I don't think the cumulative effect would be particularly negative. But given that if I were driving and I was looking for somewhere to pay, I think it would be obvious that those cabinets were there. I also thought very, very closely about the sites where they were going to go, and I don't personally think they would be intrusive. I actually had a strange experience that as I stood near the Blackadder Church and near the Chinese restaurant, other restaurants are available, of course, that those cabinets actually made me look around, made me appreciate. And in fact, you know, the convenience issue hasn't been talked about with the number for drivers who are coming in. It gets them in quickly, they can pay, they can go on. And I think it's an issue to be thinking about. I also want to stress that if I've learned anything from planning colleagues, and particularly if I might mention Paul Zahowski, the effect of street clutter, of cumulative signage, is always one which is top of their list and priority. And I don't have fears for a proliferation of signs. And actually, if there were, I would be surprised. But if there were, I would certainly want to do something about it, because I am proud of the awards that North Berwick has won, and I don't want to do anything. But I think on balance, I don't think the size of the cabinet does do anything to lower the standard of the buildings around. And I think we ought to be encouraging people to visit by bus. I'm surprised that Councillor McIntosh didn't mention that as well, but I will. And I think the visual relationship issue is relatively minor, but I think the whole scheme and the way in which it will be paid for needs to be supported. I listened with slight regret at some of the comments, because I do think our new chief executive is trying very, very hard to engage and to listen. And of course, engagement means listening on both sides. And I hope that that might be recognised. I think the town has changed. I think that there is a real hope for me that the presence of the meters will encourage better behaviour, will reduce the parking problems that we've seen, the traffic flow problems, and overall, on all the evidence presented to me, and particularly from my experience in North Berwick and from yesterday's site visit, I'll be supporting the applications. I'd be happy to consider the motion to move the Blackadder Church, but I was thinking that, you know, if we move it somewhere else, then those who sit on the bench, those who are passing by, might have objections, but I'm happy to consider that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor McMillan. And no other, I will make some comments. I thank obviously the objectors for putting forward your strong views and your opinions towards what's in the proposal that's in front of us. I'd just like to try and give some response to some of the points that you raised. I think you mentioned obviously North Berwick being a special place, winning a national award as one of the nicest places to live within East Lothian. A lot of the design and the layout of North Berwick, as of many of the communities across East Lothian, is partly due to the good planning officers within East Lothian Council and how they've made sure that development, when it does take place, it's done carefully and continues to make our communities look attractive. And that's why many people now want to live here within East Lothian. The parking situation in North Berwick is, and I know that people have got different opinion here, there's a limited number of spaces within our town centre, and we've massively increased the size of the town, and the number of vehicles that are now trying to access the town centres is making it unsafe. When we were there at the site visit looking at the locations for the parking meter, when people try to get into a parking space, they've got to do the manoeuvre reversing back in. It stops traffic all the way along the street. And then what you'll find is the older people that you said are the majority within North Berwick cross in between the stationary cars. The cars then start to move while people are still in the process of crossing, and that makes the situation dangerous. And it was quite clear to see in North Berwick when we were there yesterday. I think, you know, the assessment that's been done to bring this forward and the opinions that's within the report have been done by East Lothian Council professional planning officers. and I do respect our professional planning officers, as I do all the different professionals we have across the council. They do a great job for East Lothian. And I think the assessment that's in the report today is a fair reflection of the impact the introduction of parking meters within North Berwick. The signage, the concerns around signage, we already have signage around the streets within North Berwick. There's an hour and a half limited parking. I know that people don't really look at these signs and don't ignore it completely, but these posts are there for the signage to tell people you've got limited parking availability. These signs will be replaced. You've got that, still have that hour and a half, but there's also a payment if you're up beyond the 45 minutes. So that it will just be replacing existing signage. So additional signs, there may be one or two, but there won't be a flood of new signs. The size of the parking meters, I mean, we can see them if you visit the coastal car parks. They are not large structures, they are small structures, and their impact on anything around about them will be very limited. I think that what we're trying to achieve here, I know that there's people fearful that the impact on the businesses might be something that harms these businesses. I can tell you that on this council, we have done everything we can to support the small businesses in our town centres. And I think that one of the biggest fears for people visiting a town is the ability to find a space to safely park their car, and the town is attractive, and there are public facilities for them to use. If that's not available, that detracts people from using the town centre. So I don't think the introduction of parking charges along with these meters will make North Berwick less attractive for people to use. And therefore, I'm going to be supporting this application that's in front of us today. And the last point I wanted to make was, I know there's some concern, and Councillor Finlay has raised it with me at the site visit, about the parking meter that's in front of the Abbey Church. And I'm going to propose today that we support the application as is in front of us today, and we ask officers to consider having a look. I've heard concerns from Councillor McMillan about, the location in the corner. So I'm not going to propose that we reject that one. I'm going to propose that we support all the parking meters proposed in this application, but officers take another look at the one in front of Blackadder Church to see if it could be located at a different position. But I'm not refusing any of the proposed parking meters today. Now, I know that we've got a proposal from Councillor Finlay to do just that, and if he wants to propose that just now.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I think I've got two proposals. There's my proposal that we delay the applications until an EIA is taken, which I believe Councillor Allen will second. But I'd also like to propose a condition, if that's the right word, that the meter outside the Blackadder Church is refused if the application as a whole is approved. Thank you.
Okay. And could Councillor Allen confirm that she's prepared to second these two proposals?
Yes, I can confirm that.
Okay, right. I'll now need to go back to the clerk and how we vote on this. There's obviously the one to delay, so we should take that one first if we want to continue with the applications.
Convener, I believe that Tanya Murray or Graham Marsden might have a comment to make on the proposal about delaying for the EIA.
Okay. Mr. Martin?
Yeah, no, thank you. Just on the EIA, as I advised earlier, the Council's already undertaken an EI screening position on this application. We will not be taking another position on it. Our position is that an EIA report is not required.
Okay. Councillor Finlay?
Surely I understand Mr. Marsden's position, but surely that's a decision the councillors take.
Okay, right. So if the councillors took a decision today to go for an EIA, would one have to be carried out?
But my concern is the concern is impacts on the conservation area, but it doesn't meet the thresholds for that form of urban development. I'm not sure what an IEIA on conservation would add, given the officers and the Stantec report already assesses this issue. What additional information would be provided?
But I think we have to give him the opportunity to disagree with that.
Right, okay, well, we'll just have to vote on it and we'll see where this goes. But the recommendation for officers, there's no requirement for an AIA to be done. But Councillor Finlay's proposal is we delay taking the decision today for an EIA to be carried out. So I ask the clerk to take a vote on this.
Sorry, I just want to check with Graham Marsden that we're able to vote on this if the advice is if it's not a competent proposal.
I would maybe ask the council legal advisor, but my concern would be the matter of screening of EIAs is for an officer determination in terms of this a planning function that we undertake. It's not necessarily a political decision to make EIAs or undertake EIAs. It's a technical assessment undertaken by professionals.
I think legal would agree with that, Rebecca.
Okay. Okay, so Councillor Finlay, it's not competent.
I think Councillor McIntosh has put a comment in the chat.
Right. Hold on. Right, the Councillor McIntosh is about you asking you to reconsider if an EIA is needed. Is
just be clear, I'm not actually asking that,
no,
but I feel like that's maybe
yeah.
an acceptable wording for what Jeremy is asking. Yeah. Would that work as a compromise so we can get this to a vote?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so I think that's agreeable. I think to reverse the officer's decision, demand an EI required is not acceptable, but to ask us to reconsider and postpone, I think is a reasonable request. Thank you.
Right. Okay. Right, we can do a vote on that now. Becky?
Yep. Okay.
Sorry, so could I just ask Councillor Finlay and Councillor Allen to confirm that they're happy to accept that wording, that the proposal is to continue and ask the officers to reconsider the EIA decision?
Yes, I am.
Yes, I am too.
Okay.
Thank you. So we'll take a vote on that. Councillor Hampshire?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Councillor Allen?
Proposal.
Thank you.
For the proposal.
Councillor Cassini?
For the proposal.
Thank you. Councillor Findlay?
Yes, for.
Councillor Forrest?
Against.
Councillor Gilbert?
Against the proposal.
Councillor McGinn?
Against.
Councillor McIntosh?
Against.
Councillor MacLeod?
Against.
Councillor McMillan?
Against.
And Councillor Yorkston?
Against.
Thank you. So there were 3 votes in support and 8 votes against the proposal. So the proposal falls.
Okay, and now the next one we've got is we either support the proposal as the recommendation in the paper, or Councillor Finlay's put a proposal that we support the paper with a condition that the Blackadder is not approved. Is that correct, Councillor Finlay?
That's correct, yes.
Yeah. Okay, so do we just vote on one or the other?
Thank you. So if we just consider those different positions then, so if we call position 1 just as the officer recommendation, which is to grant consent, if we call position 2 with Councillor Finlay's proposal to refuse consent for that particular meter. And then there are the usual options, not to support or to abstain. Councillor Hampshire.
Option 1.
Councillor Allen.
Chair, I think Councillor McIntosh may have a point of order or something.
It was a question. It was just to clarify on the positions. Sorry. Can I come in?
Please do. Sorry.
It was just that, Councillor Hampshire, you said in your comments there about if we voted for it as is in the recommendation, you would still be hoping the officers might look at that one and see whether there was an alternative. Like, is that implied in position 1 then? That's my question, because I thought that sounded like a reasonable compromise, but I just wanted to check, is that sort of on record, or do we need to propose that as a more specific amendment? Sorry.
Can I clarify then? Obviously, Councillor Finlay raised with me that he had concerns about that particular location. I spoke to officers, and if we approve the application as today, then we could still say the officers could look, and if is there an alternative, they would have to submit another application, and they could still do that at a later stage. So that we can still do that if that's only if there's another suitable location.
Yeah, thank you for that clarification. That's fine.
Chair, sorry to drag this out. I know we're all looking forward to a break, but those two options don't quite fulfill what I would need, because at the end of the day, I wouldn't vote for either of these options, because I'm going to vote against the meters in principle, but I would like that particular meter to be removed. So can we have a separate vote on that? Meter.
We can have it's still option 1, option 2. Option 1 is you support the recommendation in the paper. Option 2 is yours to take out the Blackadder proposal.
Yeah, but it's still supporting the rest of the application, which I won't be.
All right, so you just want to refuse the application then?
Yes. But what I'm asking for is that particular meter to be voted on separately.
Under the way the voting works now, Councillor Finlay, you can still vote to refuse overall, but you have still proposed that as being an option for as part of the vote. So we would still vote on everything all at one time. With the option 1 and then the option 2 that you proposed.
And option 3 to refuse it all.
Yeah.
If we just call that a refusal, yes.
Okay.
Okay, content to proceed, convener?
Yeah. Option 1 or option 2, is that what we're going with now?
Option 1, option 2, refuse and abstain. Councillor Hampshire.
Option 1.
Councillor Allen.
Thank you for the clarification there. Refused.
Councillor Cassini.
Yes, I refuse.
Councillor Findlay.
Refuse.
Councillor Forrest.
Option 1.
Councillor Gilbert.
Option 1.
Councillor McGinn.
Well done, Becky. Option 1.
Councillor McIntosh.
Option 1.
Councillor MacLeod.
Option 1.
Councillor McMillan.
Option 1.
And Councillor Yorkston.
Option 1.
Thank you. So option 1, which was the proposals as recommended in the report, have been approved with 8 votes, and there were 3 votes against.
Right, that's us now at 2 minutes past 2. So I've come back here at 2:30.
Convener, just to check, are we content with that duration of a break, just given the time? If you want to go with that, you can. We could have a 20-minute break or something, just to give people a quick chance to get a refreshment, bathroom break, etc.
What people's view?
No, I'd rather have at least half an hour.
Right, we'll make it 2:30. We'll come back in here at 2:30. Right.
Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to come back. I have another meeting to go to, I'm afraid.
Right.
Thanks, Councillor Allen. I'll record that.
Thank you.
Okay.
Could having never checked whether it's possible to pause one of these recordings, could I ask everybody to mute their microphones and switch their cameras off, and I'll attempt that. Thanks.
Right. Okay.
Thank you, Becky.
Councillor Gilbert, can I just check if you're back with us? Because I know I'm just asking people to switch cameras back on as they come back in. Councillor Cassini, also, are you back with us?
Yeah, I'm here.
That's great, thanks, Neil.
I'm here. I'm here. I was just
Brilliant, thanks, Cher.
Come along.
Do we have Colin Yorkson? Oh, sorry, we do. You were there all along. Apologies, Colin. Right, I believe we have all of our members, and Dareth is here, I think. Dareth, are you here? Yes, you are. Sorry, Dareth's here, Graham's here, Tanya's here. I don't think our our objectors are here too. Right. I believe we've got everybody
here
that we need.
Okay.
And
to start?
Do you want to just formally reopen the meeting, convener?
Yeah. Okay. Welcome back to the afternoon session of the Planning Committee. We've got quite a few applications to get through, so could I ask people to try to be as concise as possible when they make any representation? So could we move on to the item, which is item 3?
Item 3 is planning application 25/00355/P, and that's at Melbourne Place, North Berwick.
Okay, could the officer give a summary of the report, please?
Thanks, convener. So, planning permission is sought for the installation of 3 parking meters, one in a position on the footway of Melbourne Place and others within the Melbourne Place car park. There have been 15 objections received to the application. The Community Council also object to the application. Again, this is one of 12 applications proposing a total of 27 parking meters in different locations in North Berwick. The full assessment of the proposed development before you. I've got nothing further to add, and it's recommended that planning permission be granted, subject to the conditions at the end of the report. Thank you.
Okay. Any councillors got any questions for the planning officer? No? Okay. If there's no questions from the planning officer, I believe that the applicant doesn't want to make any more submission, but is prepared to answer questions. Do you have any questions for the applicant from members? No? Okay, we'll now move to representations against the application, and it's either Community Council or the two objectors. Would you like to make any comment on these?
I'm refraining from this one.
So that's the Community Council refraining from saying anything.
Right, okay.
Okay. I'll say a few words, but only a few, okay? Even I can't make a great deal about putting parking meters into the Imperial car park. I think the environment is generally what might be called not sensitive in historic and heritage terms, so we'll take that as read. The third parking meter, the one at the corner of Melbourne Place and Quality Street, I think this is an opportunity lost. Most places have a sculpture or a feature for drivers at major intersections in a town to have a look at. And in North Berwick, there are going to be a 1.5 metre high cabinet surrounded by a vast number of planters, which are there at the moment. I think this is an opportunity missed and a legacy wasted, rather. And I'm quite sure something like this would not have come forward when Frank Tyndall was Chief Planning Officer. He'll be burling in his grave, as will Graham Duncan and Ian McNeill. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Just those comments, I'm not going to add much more other than that, you know, there are vistas along Victoria Road, 4th Street, that will look directly onto that meter location. So it's disappointing that it's that's the position where it's been brought forward.
Okay, thank you. Right, we now move. Anybody want to make any comment on the paper? No, I'll obviously make one comment, and the comment regarding Ian McNeill, Graham Duncan and Frank Tyndall. I worked with two of these planning officers, and they were very good planning officers, and East Lothian is the place it is because of the work that they did along with their staff team. Frank Tyndall was before my time, but been made very well aware of Frank's protection of our conservation areas. But I do think that the situation we have in North Berwick with the volume of cars trying to access that town centre, some sort of control has to be put in place. And I think that what's been proposed is something that all of these three would have accepted going forward. Councillor McMillan?
Yeah, like you, I didn't know Frank Tyndall, but Graham and Mrs. Duncan, I did know well, and I just echo your remarks. And I think you're right to point out that things have changed, and we've become victims of cars and so on. And I think this is another opportunity to look at a corner where we can improve parking and safety and access. It is interesting, and I think it highlights some of the differences of opinion, because when we were talking, I think the last planning committee about having signposts on roundabouts, many people objected to that because it would be a distraction, and here we are talking about a statue and we're talking about clutter, and so the opinions may differ. But I think we all respect the beauty and the attraction that is in itself North Berwick. So I'll certainly be supporting this particular one because I do think it enhances safety, access, and controls the parking issues. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Is there any other further comments on this application? If not, could we go to the vote? Can I ask the clerk to take the vote roll call, please?
Thank you. Please indicate your vote against the officer recommendation, which is to grant consent. Councillor Hampshire.
Support.
Councillor Cassini.
Support.
Councillor Findlay.
Against.
Councillor Forrest.
Support.
Councillor Gilbert.
Support.
Councillor McGinn.
Support.
Councillor McIntosh.
Support.
Councillor MacLeod.
Support.
Councillor McMillan.
Support.
And Councillor Yorkston.
Support.
Thank you. There were 9 votes in support of the officer recommendation and 1 vote against.
Okay, thank you. Could move on to the next item, please.
Item 4 is planning application 25/00764/P, and that's at 4th Street, North Berwick.
So please give a summary of the report, please.
So planning permission is sought through this application for the installation of 3 parking meters at 4th Street. Planning permission is also sought for the installation of bollards and the formation of a curbed area at the site of one of the parking meters. There's been 9 objections received to the application, and the Community Council also object. Again, there's a full assessment of the proposed development in the report before you, and it is recommended that planning permission be granted, subject to the conditions at the end of the report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Any questions of the planning officer? Councillor Finlay.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I was just going to ask what consideration has been given to the relative closeness to the old Hoose public house and the overspill of pedestrians onto the street and pavements that may have on the positioning of perhaps the most eastern and the middle meters.
Thanks for that, Councillor Finlay. Yeah, I mean, in consultation with this, road services didn't advise or had no objection and didn't have any concern over any pedestrian safety issues with the location of that particular meter.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yes, thank you.
Oh, right. Okay, any other questions? Nope. Okay, the objectors, do you have any points you want to highlight?
Yes, please. Out of the 3 meters, 2 are reasonably tucked away, but I think the third one is a real outrage. You're coming from Edinburgh, going through scenic Durton Avenue, through the clubhouses, past the putting green, and there you have, welcome to North Berwick, a parking meter right in the middle of the road. And just where the road narrows, it is, I think it is, the location is so badly chosen. And aggravating is these bollards, just where the road narrows down. I don't know how many times a year they will be driven. Visual impact, and welcome to the town centre, and there is in the middle of the road the parking meter. I find it hard to swallow.
Okay. Is there any other comment from other
Yes.
objectors?
Yes, this application is quite interesting in that it was actually an application for 5 parking meters, and at some point along the way it changed to 3, only the objectors weren't notified. Nobody was notified about the change to the application. Now, good practice is normally that if an application is changed, the objectors are notified of the change. It wasn't done. The documentation was updated, but your planning portal doesn't show that, nor does it show the superseded documents. So it's difficult to follow what happened. And then yesterday, there were no documents available to view, to review. I share the council's view of an island within the street at a particularly narrowing point. But my concerns about the other 2 applications, which are both related to the routes, the rights of way to the beach over 4th Street. In both cases, the pavements are narrow, very, very narrow. I went out last night and measured all of these things just because I haven't got enough to do in my life, obviously. So the pavement outside the Hope Rooms is narrow at 1.5, and that includes the curb. That's not just the wearing bit. It's 1.5, including the curb. And whilst I accept that you could actually get the cabinet in there, it would leave the minimum distance, which would rely upon the. But the big issue, and it should be a big issue for you guys, because it will prevent proper maintenance of the Hope Rooms. Now, it's a council building, a council property. For goodness sake, why would you want to put cabinets hard against a building that's your liability? I can't get that. I just in set C, the pavement I measured is less than 1.1, so it can't be installed in accordance with your requirement for 1.2. And it will prevent maintenance also of the building, the tanning salon, the beauty therapy place. So my concerns, my organisation still objects. We object to visual clutter, harm to the conservation area, all of those things that were mentioned before, but with, in addition, the issues that I've raised here individually.
Thank you for that. Could I, before we go any further, ask the planning officer to comment on the application being changed from 5 to 3?
Is there an opportunity for me to say something?
Yeah, I'll bring you in just now. I just wanted to get this point clarified. I'll bring you in a minute. Could the planning officer give indication on why it's not been on the portal?
Yeah, so originally there was 5 meters proposed in this application. However, I think it might have been one of the objectors earlier pointed out that the actual address of the application was 4th Street, but it did include 2 meters on Beach Road. So because the address wasn't accurate for the 2 meters on Beach Road, the decision was taken to remove the 2 meters on Beach Road from the application. Because it was removing 2 meters and thus less of an impact, because it was just the 3 meters left proposed, the decision was taken that it wasn't necessary in this particular circumstance to kind of re-advertise or re-notify.
Okay, right, thank you for that clarification. Could I ask the other objector to give his points over, please?
Thank you. Well, I agree with the points and don't particularly want to repeat them from Kirsty and Christiana. I'd certainly like to just emphasise and echo the point regarding the location at Inset C in terms of safety issues. There are no accidents. There have been no road accidents in North Berwick for 3 and possibly it's now going on for 5 years. So there isn't a safety issue in terms of road safety issue in North Berwick. Putting this location here with bollards at that location, I think will.
It's E.
Sorry, it's A now.
A.
It's E.
Sorry, which is.
You're wrong way. A.
You've got the 5. Yes, it's because of the
Just
change.
A.
It's A.
A now.
Right, yeah. Okay. Sorry, it's A now.
C was on the old application.
Yeah, this is confusing. Anyway, A. Narrow squeeze point is already existing when you get cars parked there or a van parked there. You're now actually formalising it and actually put in bollards and pavement there at the worst possible location along that stretch of the road. So I would certainly suggest that one is reviewed and whether it actually needs to build out as far as it does or move to a different location. Thank you.
Right, thank you.
It's an excellent handout.
Right. Could I ask any member got any comment or questions for the objectors and their comments there just now? No. Okay.
Chair, I'm looking to come in again. Sorry,
Yeah,
it's me.
sorry.
It's all right. I really just wanted to ask our roads officer's opinion on I'm quoting from the objector, the outrageous middle of the road sighting, and also maybe to explain from perhaps a pedestrian point of view the necessity of the bollards in the location as well. I just wondered if we could hear from our professional officer just their view of that.
Yes, happy to come in there.
Right,
so
right.
the build out into the carriageway is a fairly common feature. We have asked for it to have a road safety audit to double check that it's properly visible and accessible. So that will be carried out as part of the process. And your question around the bollards, sorry, I didn't really understand.
I think I'm hearing that the bollards from the objectors are unnecessary and might be intrusive and actually cause further accidents. So it was really just.
Yeah, I mean the road safety audit will assess both the all road users, so that will be picked up in the road safety audit as well. The bollards are usually there to highlight the presence of the feature and potentially protect it from any impact. But if they are a hazard to pedestrians, then that would be picked up as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Right, so there's no further questions of the objectors. We now need to move to a debate on this application. Anybody would like to start off on a debate on that? Councillor Finlay?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I mean, obviously, my standard objection for all these applications refers to the policy CH2, so I'm not going to go over that again, as I've probably spoken far too long on that already. But on this particular one, I think the comments made by the objectors on the placing of the 2 easterly ones do present problems, given that they are walkways down to the beach. One's close to the Hope Rooms, one's very close to the public house, which we already have problems there about people from the public house spilling out into the the road and the pavements having people standing at the heaters will just add to that. So as you might expect, I'm going to be voting against the officer's recommendation.
Thank you for that, Councillor Finlay. Any other councillor comment? No, I'll just make a comment. Obviously, all of the sites of the parking meters have been assessed by our council officers and have been deemed as acceptable locations for the parking meters. I accept that the objectors have got the concern around the blister being established. However, sometimes the blisters do tend to make the appearance that the road is much narrower than it is, and it slows the traffic down, because traffic coming along that beach road does come along there quite fast. It's a one-way street, so they come along there quite fast, and the blister may act as a traffic calming measure. However, you've heard from the transportation officer that an audit will be done on that for all road users, and we'll get that report before anything is installed. But I'm happy to take the recommendation that's been supported by our officers today. Councillor McMillan?
Chair, thank you. I would have just made all those comments exactly the same. I think you've been reading my notes over the Teams, but I just want to echo what you've said. Thank you.
Right, okay, thanks. Thanks very much. Okay, if there's no other comments to be made, could we move to the vote on this application? Clark, please.
Thank you. Members, please indicate your vote against the officer recommendation, which is to grant consent. Councillor Hampshire.
Approve.
Councillor Cassini.
Approve.
Councillor Findlay.
Against.
Councillor Forrest.
Approve.
Councillor Gilbert.
Approve.
Councillor McGinn.
Approve.
Councillor McIntosh.
Approve.
Councillor MacLeod.
Approve.
Councillor McMillan.
Approve.
And Councillor Yorkston.
Approve.
Thank you. There were 9 votes in support of the officer recommendation to grant consent, 1 vote against.
Okay, thanks. That's that application approved. Right. On to next item, item 5, please.
Item 5 is planning application 25/00655/P, and that's at Quality Street, North Berwick.
Okay, could also give a summary of the report, please.
Planning permission is sought for the installation of 3 parking meters, 2 on the footways at Quality Street and 1 within the lodge car park. Planning permission is also sought for the installation of bollards and the formation of a hard standing area at the site of the parking meter proposed within the lodge car park. There have been 6 objections received to the application, and the Community Council also object. There's a full assessment of the proposed development in the report before you, and it's recommended that planning permission be granted, subject to the conditions at the end of the report. Thank you.
Okay, members, any questions of the officer? Councillor Finlay.
Thank you, Chair. I was just wondering what the rationale was for the 2 most northerly ones. The one in the lodge car park is there obviously for a reason, but the 2 northerly ones are quite close together. Is there a reason why we need 2?
I'd probably pass that question to the applicant as the operational reasons of why they want 2 meters there, if that's okay.
Okay, I'll do that.
Well, could the applicant respond to that question?
Yes, Chair. So just to kind of reflect, it's quite, the Councillor Finlay has pointed out that both of these are quite close together, but what we experience here and the thinking around road safety and pedestrian safety in particular is for vehicles that are turning into the high street, going through the cross and such, it's more appropriate and applicable to have them split. So therefore, if you're parking on the kind of north section of Quality Street or the south section, it's therefore that you are not actually having to cross over the busy access into the high street. So that's the reason why there is 2 in that location.
Thanks for that.
Yeah, thank you.
Mr. Smith. Okay, any other questions? No, so no other questions. And the applicant is not looking to make any contribution at this stage, but is willing to answer questions if members have got it. So we now move to the objectors. Would you like to make any comment on this application?